Afghanistan is a landlocked country bordering Soviet Union, Iran, China, and Pakistan. Ensuring that Afghanistan is within power reach is important for this geographic positioning. But if we track carefully, the capture of Osama bin Laden as US national interest was actually way before 9/11. Biden will be torn by the political divides on how to move forward with Afghanistan. Biden's eye is now in Indo-Pacific and also in other fronts such as failed states in Africa.
None of these demands were met, and now the Taliban will pay a price.
Hello all, great to see you here at Nyambung, the platform for discussing political economic issues in simpler language that would make you click and connect, or in Bahasa Indonesia, in Indonesian language, Nyambung, with me, Dinna Prapto Raharja. Thank you for joining me today from Jakarta, the capital city of Indonesia. In this 22nd episode, I would like to focus on U.S. foreign policy in Afghanistan. For those of you doing research or studying international relations or comparative politics, hopefully this video would benefit you. First, I will talk about what is the U.S. foreign policy on Afghanistan. And second, I would like to discuss what to expect from U.S. President Joe Biden. Okay, let's get rolling. Okay, let's focus first on what the U.S. foreign policy on Afghanistan has been. 2 points. The first is that U.S. interest in Afghanistan pertains to geopolitics. Afghanistan is a landlocked country bordering Soviet Union, Iran, China, and Pakistan. Ensuring that Afghanistan is within power reach is important for this geographic positioning. Diplomatic ties between U.S. and Afghanistan has been established back in 1935. Nothing special happened until the Cold War, when the U.S. and Soviet Union sought to gain foothold in Afghanistan, first through infrastructure investments and then military intervention. Soviet invaded Afghanistan, and then the Mujahideen of Afghanistan, back then funded and supported by the U.S., resisted the Soviet occupation. For these geopolitical reasons, the U.S., under President Carter, promised renewed aid to Pakistan, who helped with the Pakistan inter-service intelligence to fight the Soviet and to provide defense support to the Persian Gulf states, namely at that time, Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia also get financial aid from the United States. Such aid policy continues under President Ronald Reagan, supplying anti-aircraft missile to the Mujahideen beginning in 1986. So when the Soviet Union withdrew from Afghanistan, the geopolitics changed a bit because inside of Afghanistan already grew Taliban, and the neighboring Iran has become a threat to the US. So the means to support Afghanistan changed, but in short, Afghanistan is important to the US for its geopolitical positions, that it will require the United States to aid in ways possible to this country. Secondly, the United States' interest in Afghanistan is counterterrorism. The 9/11 tragedy brought shock, basically, to the United States that one country and more countries can actually be a hotbed for terrorism activities. Afghanistan and its weak governance was identified was among the hotbed for terrorism. President George W. Bush pledged to search Osama bin Laden, a Saudi Arabian citizen and members of a wealthy family of bin Laden, who joined Mujahideen forces in Pakistan to fight against the Soviet Union in Afghanistan, but later on linked to Al-Qaeda movement, was determined to revenge to the U.S.
On my orders, the United States military has begun strikes against Al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan. These carefully targeted actions are designed to disrupt the use of Afghanistan as a terrorist base of operations and to attack the military capability of the Taliban regime. More than 2 weeks ago, I gave Taliban leaders a series of clear and specific demands: close terrorist training camps, hand over leaders of the Al-Qaeda network, and return all foreign nationals, including American citizens unjustly detained in your country. None of these demands were met, and now the Taliban will pay a price.
But if we track carefully, the capture of Osama bin Laden as U.S. national interest was actually way before 9/11. Back in 1998, President Bill Clinton identified Al-Qaeda and bin Laden as a responsible actor for attacking the U.S. Embassy in Africa. That was August 1998, where over 200 individuals were killed in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and in Nairobi, Kenya. Clinton considered a missile strike against bin Laden back in May 1999, but he didn't do it, for the intelligence was unclear, so he said. Nevertheless, Clinton signed a directive authorizing the CIA and the Elite Special Activities Division to apprehend bin Laden and bring him to the US, either alive or dead. Indeed, this is US interests on counterterrorism that then later become dominant in subsequent military deployments and aid commitments to Afghanistan. President George W. Bush called for an invasion of Afghanistan in less than a month after 9/11 of 2001. He was determined to send terrorists to Guantanamo Bay, and keep Afghanistan away from terrorism. President Obama followed on this military deployment. He chose to surge troops in the plan to capture Osama bin Laden, and then phase out, and then pull out US troops from Afghanistan. May 2nd, 2011, Obama announced the killing of Osama bin Laden in Pakistan.
Good evening. Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda, and a terrorist who's responsible for the murder of thousands of innocent men, women, and children. It was nearly 10 years ago that a bright September day was darkened by the worst attack on the American people in our history. The images of 9/11 are seared into our national memory. Hijacked planes cutting through a cloudless September sky, the Twin Towers collapsing to the ground, black smoke billowing up from the Pentagon, the wreckage of Flight 93 in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, where the actions of heroic citizens saved even more heartbreak and destruction. And yet we know that the worst images are those that were unseen to the world. The empty seat at the dinner table, children who were forced to grow up without their mother or their father, parents who would never know the feeling of their child's embrace, nearly 3,000 citizens taken from us, leaving a gaping hole in our hearts.
Afghanistan President Hamid Karzai, who rose to power because of US toppling of Taliban, sought financial commitment from the US to shore up security and help reconstruct Afghanistan. But it didn't quite happen. Under President Trump, what became dominant was the idea to draw troops as well as aid to Afghanistan. And President Biden didn't shy away from Trump's legacy. So both Democratic and Republican US presidents actually shared an interest as strategic geopolitical interests and to counter terrorists. So those are the two interests of the US in Afghanistan. Now let's talk about what to expect from US President Joe Biden. Biden ruled during COVID-19 pandemic era, where the voters are highly divided on what to do economically to survive the pandemic. Biden also inherited Trump's legacy on Afghanistan and Middle East policy in general. As you know, Trump pulled out from the Iran nuclear deal, or the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Trump also shaken the future of two-state solution for Israel and Palestine. You remember he was announcing Jerusalem as the capital city of Israel, and he struck the Abraham Accord, where the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, together with Israel and the United States, reached a collective agreements to normalize relations with Israel. For Afghanistan, Trump announced plan to withdraw troops from Afghanistan by May 1, 2021. What was striking from all of this was that the announcement for all of this, especially to pull out troops from Afghanistan, was made just a few days before Biden's inauguration. And Biden chose to follow Trump's footsteps. He continued to deal with the Arab states to support Israel, normalizing relationship of Arab states with Israel. He did quite nothing, actually, to put back peace with Iran. Biden is reportedly refused to commit to keeping sanctions lifted for Iran for the rest of his term. And we're talking about, Joe Biden's just being in office now, and he already made that saying. So even if Iran rejoins and then complies with the nuclear deal, there's basically no reward for Iran. Biden also agreed with Trump to pull out U.S. troops from Afghanistan and reduce commitments to Afghanistan. Biden already pulled out food, supplies, logistics from the Afghan army. And he also announced that he would pull out completely by September 11, 2021, to allow for evacuation of U.S. civilians and others helpful to U.S. So he just simply backed off a bit on the schedule, but he remains with Trump's plan. Unfortunately, Afghanistan presidents then, Ghani, fled in August. And then Taliban immediately took over Kabul, and the entire government of Afghanistan collapsed.
As we close 20 years of war and strife and pain and sacrifice, it's time to look to the future, not the past, to a future that's safer, to a future that's more secure, to a future that honors those who served and all those who gave what President Lincoln called their last full measure of devotion. I give you my word with all of my heart. I believe this is the right decision, a wise decision, and the best decision for America.
So what to expect from Joe Biden? Two things, I think, from my note. Number one, Biden will be torn by the political divides on how to move forward with Afghanistan. The upcoming midterm election in November in the US may make Biden take unclear stand on Afghanistan, floating ideas to secure Democrats' popularity amongst voters. Second, Biden's campaign was to bring back multilateralism. Unfortunately, Biden is not the most decisive US president. I think he takes decisions for a long time. He discusses things for a long time. And when his popularity at home is plummeting, unless something that really happened inside of the US, God prays, hopefully this won't happen, but if something as terrible as terrorist attacks inside of the US happened, I don't think Biden would, in principle, change his position. He would remain with what he has decided today. Biden's eye is now in Indo-Pacific and also in other fronts, such as failed states in Africa. So that's all for this episodes. Hopefully you like what's being shared. Let me know what you think. And thank you for subscribing, sending us likes, and sharing this video. See you soon.
Thank you so much for your support once again. Our podcast is available at YouTube and Spotify at Nyambung with Dinna Prapto Raharja. Make sure to send us your questions or your thoughts through YouTube comment section. And if you enjoy the episode, don't forget to like, share the link to your community, and subscribe so you make sure you don't miss our contents because we post every week.